And welcome back. Before we go ahead and start drawing our character, we want to take a look at a new tool, which is the bone tool. Now, if you don't see the bone tool on your menu here, the way to add that is you come down here to these three dots right here. We can click that and we can drag that into our menu. Now, to demonstrate this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let's just create a very simple kind of arm, kind of a skeleton arm, if you will. So I'm just going to create a couple rectangles here. And let's just go ahead and create a couple fingers. So let's make a thumb. Oh, let's do, though, more of an oval shape for this. And then, of course, we'll create some fingers. And I'm not worried about these necessarily all being to scale, because, again, this is more just for a learning and demonstration purpose. All right. Now, one thing I will say is that when we get into the bone tool, we're going to want to hinge all of these together. So if I wanted to hinge these fingers and have them kind of move as one shape, I can do that. Or if I want to keep them individually, I can do that as well. But one thing I do want to point out is when we get to the bone tool is that it only will anchor off of a shape. You can't get it to anchor off of a white space. So like right here, where I wanted to anchor this so these fingers can turn, I would have to put a symbol here or a shape and then convert it to a symbol, and from there, pretty much have it make sure that that one's like, no fill, so that way it would appear that way. So we're going to see some quirkiness here, simply because we don't have this point here anchored to anything. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that shape, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and grab the bone tool, and what I want to do is take it and put it on each of these symbols here. All right, now they aren't currently symbols, so the easiest way to do that, of course, we can just click on each shape, press F8, and let's just go ahead and convert those into symbols. So notice I'm just pressing F8 and OK. I'm not worried about the name of these right now. All right, now with the bone tool, because these are all symbols, I can go ahead and click and drag onto each one of these and just go ahead and create anchors out to each one of these points. Now, again, you notice when I tried to drag it to here, it didn't work. And that's simply because at that point, there is no symbol here. But it's a pretty quick and easy tool to do. And notice each time I'm coming back to that anchor point that I want to manipulate with, and allows me to draw where I want that to go. Now, if I wanted to change the kind of center point of these limbs, if I go to my free transform tool, and I click on each individual shape, you'll see that where that white dot is, that's identified as the center. So if we want this to hinge more naturally, we actually would drag this closer to the edge of the symbol. So again, going to this one, I'm going to drag this closer to the edge of the symbol because this is going to be more where the wrist is. And if we then look at our fingers, we can adjust that. For example, we want this to be more centered or further out, we can do that as well. Again, this is a tool that gives us a lot of kind of control over how these work. And if I were to click on these symbols now, and let's go ahead and just grab all of these again. When I start manipulating this for the bone tool, one of the cool things you'll see is how this all kind of starts playing together. How all these pieces really start working when we want to actually go through and manipulate this. So first thing let's do is go ahead and just add a couple frames. So let's just go 10 frames in here. And you'll notice it doesn't. We do have the option for insert frame, but then also have the option now for insert pose. All right, and you don't see like keyframes aren't really there anymore, and that's because this is an armature. So if I hit insert frame just to fill that in, of course we now have the frames that we can work with, and we now can go ahead and take this shape here and manipulate it in such a way that's going to effectively make it move more natural. It's not going to come across as something that is, having to be animated in its own way. So let's go to our selection tool just to see how this works. So in my selection tool, when you notice when I hover over this, my selection button has the little bone symbol next to it. And it's because when I move this, you can see it's now moving this all as one big shape. And it's operating off of this primary joint, because this is the joint that's currently selected. So if I want to, for example, make this character wave, we can, of course, set this up in such a way that it's going to do it. Now, of course, you see, because I moved it, I did add a kind of a keyframe here, so I'm just going to undo until that keyframe goes away. There we go. And let's go ahead and start back. Here's our pose 1 that we start with. And let's maybe just have this arm move up a little bit. So we're going to have them move up. And we want it so that way when they finish, the arm has moved down. But of course, if this is a shoulder here, this arm right here is probably not moving too much. Instead, what's probably going to happen, it will move a little bit, but where you're going to see a lot more movement is actually further down. So if we go to this next joint, we can actually manipulate this joint here to bend in different directions here. So this is where having the bone tool can actually come in handy because it allows you to manipulate these individual limbs a lot easier. So I can manipulate them in such a way so that they might be bent at different angles. And so then when I move this, it's going to kind of have a different kind of movement here. Now I might say I don't like how this is currently looking. I might want this to be a little bit maybe more controlled here. And of course you can just bend this and manipulate it however you want to try and get to that angle that you truly are desiring. And of course, if we were to play this, we do see how the fingers move. But again, the advantage of the bone tool is that I don't have to come through here and necessarily move each of these pieces individually because they're all linked now. And it allows us to come through here and adjust these joints. So for example, if I wanted to adjust this in such a way where maybe I don't want this joint to be here anymore. Maybe I do want this one to be further up. Or I wanted to add, additional ligaments in here. It is a very powerful tool to allow us to do very quick and easy animations. And so if I wanted to, let's say, go ahead and add another 10 frames in here. And I want to now, let's say, bring the arm back up. And I'm going to grab these individual fingers and start bending them back. You can see that we now have those posed. So when I play this, you can see how that actually moves nice and solid. But if I, again, wanted to move these in such a way where these individual shapes are moving in different directions, I still have the ability to do so. So it gives me a lot of control over this arm very quickly, very easily, without having to necessarily dictate for these individual symbols.